Hi, everybody. Welcome again to Enjoy English School. I'm Bruce.
大家好，我是 Bernice.
Today and tomorrow, we have our Just So You Know articles for you. It's really one article in two parts. The name of the article is Poison in the Flowerbeds.
好的，我们今天呢要讲到是生活快递。那我们今天的主题是什么呢？哇，我们今天要进入到花园里面 Flowerbeds 可是里面有毒耶，怎么会这个样子呢？好的，那我们等一下就会从文章里面来了解咯。
Right, let's start with our first paragraph, as we should and always do. The first sentence. Near the Scottish border in the north of England lies Alnwick Castle.So we have to situate ourselves to Western Europe and the islands of Ireland and England. England is the name of the island which contains both England and Scotland just to its north. And that's an area of the world that is seldom hot. Yes, they do get a few hot days now and then, but basically it's quite cool.And what's interesting is it's very far north, but it doesn't get that much snow. How come? They're in the ocean. They're in the Atlantic Ocean. So get your mind set for this, and you know quite a bit about the United Kingdom or England already, I'm sure. But I didn't know about this, and it's so interesting, I'd love to see it.
好的，所以刚才 Bruce 老师帮我们上了一点地理课，让各位同学知道什么东西的位置在哪里。那这个地方呢，它是 near， 就是比较靠近，在这一个英格兰的北部的 border， 就是它的边境的地方。好，就在这个边境的附近呢，好，是在这个英格兰的北部。lies， 这个 lie 当然不是躺在那儿啊，哈，这个 lie 的意思就是说坐落着，好，然后所以呢，后面坐落着一个城堡叫做阿尼克城堡。这个 castle 记得这个字的发音，那个 t 是没有发音的，就像你念 Christmas 你不会念 Christmas， 你不会这样子念，所以那个 t 是没有发音的。
The first parts of the castle were built around the year 1096. So Alnwick Castle is pretty old.
好，他说这个城堡呢，它的第一个部分呢，就是被建造的时间是大约在1096年。
Okay, since that time, 1096, many dukes, earls, lords, and other British noblemen have had control of the castle throughout its long history. Well, I'm sure you all know words like king, queen, prince, princess,But they are not the only royalty. If you have a big royal family, there are their uncles and cousins and other people, and they also have titles like Duke, Earl, Lord. Now, those three are for men who are related to the king and queen, and there are other British noblemen. These are the high-class people of royalty in a country.They've had control of the castle throughout its long history. That gives us the idea that Alnwick Castle was built for royalty right at its start.
好的，所以呢，这个城堡呢，从1096年呢建造好之后呢，当时就有许许多多的像公爵啦、伯爵啦，还有叫勋爵。你可以看到这三个不同的，就是刚才我们讲的是英国贵族的这些爵位，他们的男人的这些爵位的一个分等。所以呢，第一等就是公爵 Duke， 然后接下来有伯爵，然后再来有勋爵。好，然后还有呢，他们这个英国的，因为他们的贵族呢，好，他们的人很多很多，所以呢，他们还有其他的这一些贵族的人，都一直以来呢，长期以来的，好，不断的就是在控制这样子的这个城堡，而且这个时间点呢是在 throughout， 就是从头到尾，好，这整个那么长的历史都是由这一群人在控制着这个城堡。
In 1750, the first garden was added to the castle grounds, and it bloomed for 200 years. Well, it might surprise you, why did they wait so long to prepare a garden? Well, one reason is, as I said earlier, it's quite far north, and it's not that easy to grow flowers or trees that were brought from other countries to the south. It's actually quite difficult, but they tried it, and it bloomed. It worked. The plants did grow there for some 2 centuries.
好的，接下来就到了1750年咯。第一座的这个 garden 呢，这个花园呢，当时呢，他们就把它里面加上了 add to， 就是里面被加进去了，在这个 castle 它的城堡的里面，所以它在城堡里面的这个 ground 就是他们的场地，在这个 castle 的城堡的场地里面呢，他们就加上了这一个第一间的花园，而且呢，的确这个花园里面的这个花呢，就这样子绽放了 bloom。就是开花了，开花的时间，哇哦，开花了200年这么久。
When World War II broke out, the garden's decorative flowers were replaced by crops to feed the country during wartime. Well, when something breaks out in this sense, we are talking about the beginning of World War II. And in the case of Britain, Britain is the same name as for England and the British Isles and so on. It was 1939. I think you were in high school then.
Maybe. I'm very young.
Okay, so when the war broke out, that was 1939, the garden's decorative flowers, all those beautiful blooming flowers in their gardens, were replaced. They were taken out, and was anything put in? Yes. Crops. Crops refers to usually vegetables that are grown on farms, but the people who owned the castle wanted to help feed their countrymen, the other people in the country, as long as there was a war.
好了，所以接下来就是到了这个第2次世界大战爆发的时候，也就是它一开始这个第2次世界大战一开始的时候呢，这个时候呢，这个花园里面的这些花呀，本来这些花就是 decorative， 就是做这个装饰用的这些花，结果被怎么样呢？取代了 replace 就是把它换掉取代掉了。那用什么来取代呢？ by crops 就是用这些农作物来取代。为什么用农作物取代了当时的这些花呢？主要就是因为打仗嘛，所以人们啊，军队啊，大家都要吃东西，所以他们用农作物来取代这些花，就是要来 feed， 要来养活这个国家，尤其在那个时候是战争时期，大家都要吃东西。
Afterwards, after the war, the garden fell into ruin and finally closed in 1950. I'm afraid after the war, people stopped paying attention to this garden. That's what they mean by fell is the past tense of fall. To fall into ruin is to slowly become useless or too old or something that needs fixing. And so the castle or the garden part of the castle was closed in 1950.
Afterwards 就是在这个第2次世界大战之后呢，这个花园呢后来就怎么样呢？ Fell 就是 fall 的过去式 fall into ruin， ruin 就是废墟，所以他们就沦为废墟。你看那个 fall 是掉进去，所以掉到废墟里面去了，所以这个花园呢就变成毫无用处了。然后呢最后呢就在1950年就关门啦。
Okay, that completes our first paragraph. Let's take a short break before we continue. Well, let's continue. In 1996, the Duchess of Northumberland decided to rebuild the garden. Okay, now we're a lot closer to the present day. We're in 2023 now. And in 1996, the Duchess is the wife of a duke. And we saw the word duke in our first paragraph. A duke's wife is a duchess. And because it's her title, this is her official name, we capitalize the D of Duchess. And of course, Northumberland, you can see at the end, L-A-N-D. That's very, very common in English to have a place name that ends in land. It may not be pronounced that way. For example, England. We don't say England, right? We say England, but at the end is land. Scotland is another example, just in this lesson. So there was a place in Scotland or northern England. This duchess decided to rebuild the garden. She had found out about it and thought, oh, that's too bad. This used to be such a beautiful garden. Maybe we can build a new one. We can rebuild one.
好，所以到了1996年的时候呢，这个时候有一个公爵夫人，好，这个公爵夫人呢叫 Duchess， 就是刚才的 Duke 的太太，我们就会用这个字。那么这个诺森伯兰公爵夫人，那刚才呢 Bruce 老师有讲这个 LAND 是他们英国人很常见的一个名字，好的称呼，但是念的时候我们不用念 land， 我们会念 land。这样子，好，他当时就决定在1996年，他就决定说，这么漂亮的花园，为什么要把它关门呢？所以他决定重建这个花园。
She began a very long and expensive project to build water features, tree houses, and pavilions, as well as replanting the area with trees and flowers.Well, remember, this was a pretty large garden. Castles are not small buildings. So it did take a long time for her to, here we could say, replant her garden, to again make the area a garden. And that's going to be expensive, so it went slowly. She didn't do everything in just a few years. So what did she build besides replanting flowers? Water features.Now, this will include things, for example, like a fountain or a pond, things that you find in some parks or gardens that contain water. And a pavilion does not contain water. It's like a ting, is it?
Ting.
In Chinese, you also have pavilions for people to sit in and stay out of the hot sun or just to enjoy the view of the garden, as well as, I said earlier, replanting the area with trees and flowers.
好的，所以接下来呢，这一个公爵夫人她怎么开始的呢？因为呢，毕竟这个花园也关闭了很久了，所以呢，她开始的时候是很长很长的一个 project， 而且要花很多很多的钱，你才能够呢去开启这样的一个计划。那么她开始的时候，就是第一个，她里面先建造了这一个所谓的跟水有关的水井。好，那就像刚刚 Bruce 老师讲的，可能会有 fountain， 会有喷泉，会有 pound 的一个池塘，就是里面会有水的这些东西，然后呢，再来就是一些树屋啦，还有呢，就是刚才老师讲的凉亭。好，这个凉亭呢，就是人们可以坐在里面休息、喝茶，然后欣赏这个景色。As well as 就是 and， 还有呢，他又重新的去种植了好一些东西，在这个地区种植了什么呢 ？With 他用的是 trees， 所以他种植了一些树，还有一些其他的花，让这个地方看起来真正像一个花园。
Today, Alnwick Garden is one of England's most beautiful public gardens. Now, when we see public, that means for anyone to use, for everyone to use. It's no longer private, which is the opposite of public. Private means something is owned by only one person or a few people or a few families and so on.You can imagine how beautiful it is with its long history and with all the details that the Duchess worked on.
好的，所以到了今天呢，这一个阿尼克花园呢，就成为了英格兰最美丽的好这个公共花园其中一个。那刚才老师有讲了 public 就是 open 给每一个人，大家都可以进来看。那么 private 就是比较私人的，可能你要买票啦，或者是可能你要经过人家的同意你才能够进去的。所以呢，这个花园它是一个 public， 就是每一个人都欢迎去参观的。
I'm sorry, I didn't spell that yet. P-R-I-V-A-T-E. P-R-I-V-A-T-E. 小心，不是 private, it's private.
Yeah.
Okay, it's time for a short break before we go to our final paragraph. This is just day 1 of a 2-day article.
好的。
Hi, welcome back. Let's begin and end our third and final paragraph. One of the unique features of Alnwick Garden is an entire area set aside for poisonous plants.
Ooh.
Now, that is pretty unique. Unique literally means there's only one thing like it. Some animals seem to be unique, like the beautiful koala bear in Australia. There's no other animal in the world like it, so it is unique. And Alnwick Garden is considered unique because there's one large area of this huge garden, and it's only for poisonous plants. Be careful.
好的，所以接下来我们就要讲一下这个花园它有什么特别的地方。好，这个阿尼克花园呢，它里面其中有一个非常，刚才老师讲 unique， 就是非常独特的，就这么一个。好，这一个 features， 好，其中一个就是呢，这个里面呢有一个地区是整个entire， 就是 whole， 在整个地区里面 set aside， 就是为了它好挪出来的一个空间啦，或者是时间，就为了这个什么东西而预留出这样的一个这么大的一个空间呢？里面放的全部都是有毒的植物，所以你进去参观的时候，那个手呢就不要把你的手那乱碰，好，要注意一下，因为它们都是有毒的。
Inside the poison garden, there are more than 100 toxic species. Toxic means it has poison or it's poisonous. Species are 种类. They're kinds of plants, flowers, including things like trees, with plenty of information about their special properties. It's a teaching garden. It not only shows you these plants, it probably has some printed information to give you or signs to explain the name of the plant and what it can do or what it's like. And those are its properties. Properties is the nature of something. What is it like?
好的，所以我们进入到这一个有毒的花园里面呢，我们可以看得到什么呢？他说里面啊，几乎有超过100种的这些有毒的，刚才老师讲的种类物种，好，这些花的这个种类超过100种的。好，刚才讲过 toxic 就是指有毒的。那么里面呢还有很多很多的 plenty of 就是 lots of， 后面你可以接可数名词，也可以接不可数名词。它里面呢还有着很多很多的一些资讯，就是有关于呢这一些有毒的花呢，它们可能其实呢是有一些很特殊的一些什么东西呢 property， 刚才老师讲了，就是它天生与生俱来的一种特性，就是这些花其实它们有它们的特殊的属性，所以你进入到这个花园不是只有在欣赏花，你还可以学到这些毒花，它们其实有些很多的资讯可以告诉你的。
Although some of these plants are deadly, they really are poisonous, and there have been cases of visitors fainting from smelling some of the plants' toxic gases. You don't even have to touch some of these plants. They have a smell, and that smell contains poison. But despite that, the poison garden is now one of the main reasons people visit. It's still a very attractive place. How many places in the world have a poison garden?
对的。所以呢，他说虽然啊，这个里面某一些的这些植物呢，确实是有致命性的 deadly， 就是说你可能碰了你就会死掉，或者是你会发生比较严重的一些身体的起的反应。而且呢，确实也一直都有很多这样的案件出现，就是有一些 visitors，有一些游客进去参观的时候，你不需要碰，你就是闻一下，哎呀，他就昏倒了。faint 就是昏倒在地上。from 就是你从什么东西里面昏倒呢？就是你闻到了这一些植物的这一些有毒的气体，你就昏了。可是呢，这个花园呢，这个有毒的花园到了现在还是呢很多人想要去参观的一些主要原因之一，就是因为全世界你可能也找不到有花园里面竟然是有毒的花园。
The garden has even earned the title as the most dangerous garden in the world. And I'm sure they thought of that in order to attract more people.
没错，所以为什么会有 the most dangerous garden 就是要吸引大家来，大家越危险大家越想去，对不对？好，所以呢这个花园呢其实呢虽然它这么样的里面有这么样有毒的这个花朵，可是呢它也 earned 就是它赢得了这样的一个头衔，这个称号呢就是怎么样呢？它是全世界最危险的花园。
Therefore, a trip to Alnwick Castle wouldn't be complete without visiting the Poison Garden. Remember, there's a lot more there. You can go inside the castle. You can go to other gardens. But this is the only place you'll find the Poison Garden.
没错，所以因此呢，如果你今天要打算去这边参观一下，去旅行一下呢 ，a trip， 你要到这个阿尼克城堡的话呢，就绝对不会那么完整。如果没有，所以各位你看到 not without 两个加在一起，负得正，表示你一定要去参观这个地方。所以 you must go there。OK， 你一定要去怎么样呢？去参观这个有毒的花园，这样子呢，才可以让你的 trip 是一个 complete trip.
Okay, that finishes our article. We're going to take another short break and come back and review some vocabulary.
好的。
All right, number 1, bloom. Bloom is when flowers open. We can also call that to blossom, B-L-O-S-S-O-M.
好，这个字呢当动词开花。
Number 2, break out. Here it means to erupt, something that happens very, very quickly.
这个当动词片语爆发。
Number 3, fall into ruin is to become useless with age.
这个是表示呢时间的这个很久之后呢，你就变成了废墟了。
Like me. Okay, number 4, rebuild, of course, is to build again.
好的 re 就是 again， 所以 build again 就是表示再次的建造。
Number 5, to set aside. This means that you do not use something, it will be used for another purpose or a new purpose, maybe even no purpose later on.
好，这个片语的动词片语的意思呢，就是为了什么东西预留出来，然后你可能有一些特殊的目的，所以你现在先预留出来。
Number 6, we've already said many times, poisonous means deadly.
没错，这两个字都是形容词，有毒的。
Number 7, property. Now, here it refers to the nature of something or the ability of something to do something.
好的，这边当名词的意思是指事物呢与生俱来的一些特性或者是属性。
Number 8, faint.We described this earlier. You lose consciousness, which simply means you can no longer think and you'll probably fall down.
动词昏倒、晕倒。
That's it for today's, but just today's article. Tomorrow is part 2. Please join us then. Until then, bye-bye.